I'm Lori Troe. I am president of the Salina League of Women Voters, and I would like to welcome you to our February the 13th Lunch and Learn, and happy early Valentine's Day tomorrow. And if you could make sure that your cell phones are off, that would be greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you all for coming. And our topic today is childcare. Because if you hear anything on the news, you know childcare is a huge issue in Salina County and everywhere. So, we have Claire Ludes from the Salina Area United Way as our speaker, and I'm going to bring Claire up and let her introduce herself and tell us all about what she's doing to help solve the childcare issue.
Like Lori said, my name is Claire Ludes. I'm the Executive Director at the Salina Area United Way. Really glad to be here. Thank you for having us. And I'm going to dive right in because childcare is a very complex issue, and it's not something we can get through very quickly. So I want to make sure that we have enough time. So, in Salina County currently, we have a little bit over 1,000 kiddos that need a childcare slot that we don't have a slot for. That number does fluctuate a little bit here and there, but for the most part, it has stayed pretty consistent at least 1,000 or above. I think maybe it dropped under 1,000 for a week, and it just somehow was back up over it. In Salina County, in 2022, we had about 2,815 children in Salina County that had both parents in the labor force. From 2022 to 2023, you saw a drop of about 300, where you didn't see both parents in the labor force. If you look over now to the right side of the screen, it is a direct correlation in dropping from the number of children enrolled in a child care center in 2022 to 2023. That's for a number of different reasons. A, people can't afford to have children in child care. By the time they pay their bills at the end of the month, it makes more sense for mom to stay home and take care of the kiddos, or dad to stay home and take care of the kids. And we had rooms at our child care centers that were closed because we couldn't find people to work those jobs for the wage that they are being paid. So a direct correlation as you look at those numbers specifically in our county. So for every one child care slot that we have in Salina County right now, 10 children need that slot. The average wage for a child care worker is $11.25 an hour, or $25,000 annually. In Salina County, per the chamber, the living wage is $15 an hour. So most of our child care workers are making anywhere between $4 and $6 per hour less than the living wage. There's only currently one child care center in Salina County that starts their teachers at the $15 an hour pay scale. They start their teacher assistants at $15 and their lead teachers at $18. But right now, due to some different partnerships, they're not really sure how they're going to be able to keep that because of some shifting in funding that I'll talk about here in just a moment. And again, the number of in-home providers also continues to drop. Pre-COVID, 2018, we had a little over 200 in-home providers, and right now we sit at a little under 120. So that's for many different reasons. Again, pay, not being able to afford, the regulations of taking care of children in your home. There's a lot of restrictions and things that you have to follow, but also just their homes didn't feel like homes anymore. It was hard for them to have to keep all areas of their house under compliance. So even if the children, say, have access to a bedroom or a basement, they still have to meet all the rules and regulations for those rooms as well, not just the rooms that the children are in. And then childcare in Salina County is a workforce recruitment issue. We can't recruit enough people into the childcare field to be able to combat the number of children, but then also our businesses can't recruit enough workers in their workforce as well to bring people here. So it's just a vicious cycle of not being able to come from all angles. It's also an economic impact. So for every employee turnover, it costs them 20% of their workers' total compensation, and that includes both their income and their benefits. 50% of parents that have left the workforce cite that it is because of childcare, because A, they can't find childcare or they can't afford childcare. 16% of employers have employees that leave specifically because of childcare. And the biggest thing that people don't realize is that brain development in our child, the biggest part of that happens from birth to age 3 and also up until age 5. So these little individuals that we are taking care of that are future productive members of our society are going to impact our economy as we move forward. And so if we aren't giving them the best quality care and the best chance, how can we expect our community to continue even generations to come from us if we aren't taking care of the people that eventually are going to be the leaders in our community? So as we look to solutions, in 2001, Salina County formed a child care coalition. We still have that coalition. It's Peace, Partners in Early Child Care Education. They meet on a very regular basis. But the purpose of that was to help with the Wage and Teach program. They distributed funds down through the state that were designated tobacco dollars that helped with wages, longevity bonuses, and things like that to help encourage people to stay into the field. In 2012, the state redirected those tobacco dollars elsewhere, and so from there we kind of just started to see a trickle effect that continued to have impact on that. Like I mentioned, Salina Child Care right now is the only center in Salina County that has the $15 and $18 pay structure, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce encourages business and communities to help come up with other solutions. They're doing different partnerships and looking at other states, but have been really doing a better job than they have in the past with having dollars go towards child care, which I'll talk about here in a moment, some opportunities we took advantage of.
Do you know where the money went instead of child care?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I probably should look.
I think it might be to the general fund.
I would think that you're probably pretty accurate with that. I can look and let you know though, Ian.
Okay.
Currently, right now, to get all of our centers up to a living wage, we need $460,000 annually amongst all of our child care centers, and that would be to bump their lead teacher and teacher assistants to that $18 and $15 an hour wage. So where does this plan come from? When Salina Area United Way took this program, this initiative on, it originally was just a one-sided plan. They were trying to build an endowment to help fund money back into the community. Those of you that don't know how an endowment works, to see progress that can be made just through an endowment, we wouldn't have seen anything for a very long time. In an endowment, you pump money in, but you're not going to get anything out as quickly as you need it. And so when we agreed to take on this part, we actually created a twofold plan. And so that's where Salina United Way has an early child care fund that specifically will address wages and things of that nature at our centers, and then we're also building the endowment on the back side to help supplement as we look 10 to 12 years down the road. So right now, say I want to put enough money away in my endowment to eventually spit out close to $500,000 annually. I need about $10 million in an endowment to produce that type of dollar on an annual basis. And that's based off of a 4.5% annual payout and a 5% annual rate of return is how I'm figuring that number. So as we know, childcare is an issue right now. So if I only put money into my endowment, I'm not addressing the problem right now, which is why we're coming at it from that twofold plan of raising dollars now to help supplement wages, but also putting away for the future. And as we talk and work with businesses, the city, the county, and all of those things, we explain this plan to them that right now we are going to need a lot more money to be able to do what we're gonna do. But the hope is that if we can put a bigger investment right now up front, I'm gonna help build that backside so that in 5 to 8 years, you can start to reduce the dollar that you give to me, but just knowing that you're never gonna be able to fully stop it. Because as we look down the road, we know that prices and costs and things are constantly changing, and that number is probably gonna continue to grow. But if I've done a better job of helping on the backside to sustain it, my hope is that then you can reduce that as we move forward. And so that's where we also came up with our sponsor a teacher plan. So for a lead teacher, it's about $6,000 annually to get them bumped up to where they need to be for that $18 an hour, and $4,000 annually per teacher for the teacher assistant. Okay, so 1,000 kiddos, like I mentioned earlier in the slide, is how many kiddos need a child care slot for. And so I've had a lot of people say to me, well, why don't you build a new facility? You need slots, so just build it and then you'll have it. And I'm going to tell you why that is not a solution that's going to work for us here in Salina County. So to build a new facility, it's a multi-million-dollar project, as we all can imagine. Right now, we're currently licensed for 708 children, but only 446 children are being served. So I have some space there in my centers if I can get my wages up and get some staff in there to help grow that number. We can also talk about how is there other ways to create child care slots. So I'm going to give you a few examples, and I want you to keep these numbers in mind as we move forward. In Garden City, they were working on a couple different programs. They were working on building a new facility, but also renovating. They quickly found that the costs of what they were trying to do was more than they had. They also weren't thinking about sustainability of how they're going to pay their workers the wages that they need. And to this day, those facilities still sit empty. They haven't done anything with them. You actually can't really find any information on it anymore. It's almost like it has just completely disappeared off of the internet. In Lindsborg, they needed a new facility. They didn't have existing infrastructure that they could take and turn into what they needed. So they built a brand new facility for $3.2 million, and that center is currently licensed for 100 slots. But they are now having to annually raise about $60,000 to help supplement their wages to be able to stay competitive, be fully staffed with all of their rooms open. So $3.2 million for 100 slots, remember that. Then Great Bend, they also are building a new facility. They didn't have existing infrastructure that they could use or renovate. And so they're building a new center, $1.2 million, and it'll be licensed for 59 slots. So why do I tell you to remember those numbers? So at this time last year, it was announced through the Kansas Children's Cabinet that there was $40 million available to renovate and expand child care centers. United Way took advantage of that and applied on behalf of 3 centers in our community that had the capacity to renovate and expand. We were awarded $1.87 million, which was the total amount that we asked for, and it's going to renovate 3 child care centers and help us create 187 new child care slots. So this is why I say that renovating right now is our best option, because I can create a lot more slots for a lot less dollars than building a brand new center like what you saw in those other slides. The other thing to remember is with child care centers, for example, Salina Child Care Association is licensed for 159 kiddos. They will never have 159 kiddos in their center. As a child who enters as an infant continues to grow, they have to have somewhere for that child to go as they continue to age. So if they were to fill all of their slots in their centers and a child ages into the next age group and needs to go to the next room and they have filled all their slots, they're then going to have to send that child somewhere else. So right now, they're at their maximum capacity of 125 kiddos, and they won't probably go above that so that there is that room to grow and move the children where they need to go. So Salina Family YMCA McAdams Center was one of the centers that was funded through this. They actually just opened last month and are taking kiddos Love and Learn is getting ready to break ground here at the end of this month. And then St. John's Missionary Baptist is finishing up on some of their renovations. In Saline County, prior to McAdams opening, there was only 3 child care centers that took infants. With the addition of these 3 centers, we'll be up to 6 centers that take infants now, which infants is one of the biggest needs. We have centers that have preschool openings. We do not have centers that have infant openings. So additional funding and things that we've done, we received $400,000 from the county in ARPA dollars. That was specifically being used, to help us hire a new child care director that is on our staff now, Christina Small, to help do all of this backside stuff for us. And then $15,000 of it is being used for marketing, and then $325,000 is a dollar for dollar match that goes into our endowment to build for the future. We also received a $45,000 grant from Child Care Aware. That grant is helping to open a new center at First Covenant Church, Magnolia Kids. And that center actually just opened last week. And that center will also be licensed for infants as well. So when we're done with all of these grant opportunities, renovations, and things like that, we'll now have 7 centers in Saline County that take infants. So that's a really nice increase, and they're licensed for 39 slots. So between that 1.87 and this 45,000, we've created 226 new child care slots for Saline County by renovating and using existing space that we already have instead of building a new center. And then last year, back in March, I went before the Earl Bain Foundation and asked them for $50,000, which is what I used to initially hire Christina before I got some additional funding through the ARPA to sustain her for longer than just a year.
Where's the MLK at in all this?
I will get to them. They have funding in a separate slide. They don't have capacity to expand. These grants were specifically for expansion. They're at their capacity. Right now, they're just trying to maintain what they have. So they weren't eligible to receive funding through these grants. So as I mentioned, we're working on wages. Great Plains was one of the first businesses to contribute to our early child care fund. They gave us $75,000, and that will help sponsor 15 teachers in Saline County. We then got an additional $200,000 from the Earl Bain Foundation. That will sponsor 33 teachers in Saline County as well. And then additional funding became available for the Kansas Children's Cabinet. If you were one of the original recipients of that first grant that we got 1.87, we were eligible to apply for some additional funding, which is what we did. We received everything we asked for again, $316,000, which goes across 5 centers, MLK being one of them, to help them sustain what they have. That allowed them to help hire a floater in their center so that when people call in sick or possibly quit or things like that, they had additional staff and dollars to be able to help hopefully keep those rooms from closing and sustain them for where they're at, because that was a huge issue that they're still running into because they are one of the lower paid centers in the county. We've also received $15,000 from Salina Family Healthcare Center, $6,000 from Equity Bank, $4,000 from Superior, and then we just received $6,000 from Bird Camp as well. That's not on this list. And sponsorship for our teacher funding as well. And then we've also had some individual donors that have given us dollars to go towards that fund as well.
And how long does that last?
All of these are 5-year commitments right now. So all of these individual businesses and then Earl Bain Foundation, they've committed to this for an ongoing period of time, which is something we specifically go to when we go with our ask, is we need a commitment for more than 1 year, because as you know, it's not just all going to happen overnight. It's going to take time to build all of these things, and so those are specific things we go to.
So those are 4,000 a year for 5 years?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So this is just a breakdown of the slots that are being created by age groups from the 2 grants that we were awarded for renovating centers. So we're creating 49 new infant slots total, 79 the 12-month to 2.5 or toddler range, and then 98 in 2.5 to 5 years for preschool, which amounts to the 226. On this map, you're going to see this does not have McAdams on it or Magnolia Kids yet, because when we created this, they weren't quite open yet. So these are the weekly child care rates at our centers. You'll see infant care is the highest care, highest costing care, and then as your child gets a little bit older, the costs do go down. But on this map, you will see at the time there's only 3 centers that take infants on this list. This shows you the center to staff to child ratio. So infants, for example, for every 1 staff, they can only take 3 infants. The max that can be in that room is 9. Specifically though, if a center worker, for example, needs to use the restroom, they have to pull somebody else in from another room or area before they can leave to use the restroom. So they always have to have a floater or someone available. Now I can tell you that they are working to hopefully get that changed, so that hopefully they won't have to have another staff person step in while they quickly go use the restroom and come back. So I know it's on the list for the governor of getting those rules and regulations changed. But that just kind of shows you the amount of teacher to staff ratio and why infant care is so expensive and the others are not, because they can have less teachers to children. So in-home providers. So we surveyed 6 random in-home providers in Saline County. You'll see a few of them don't take infants. They don't actually start taking children until they're 18 months and older. And then you'll see the weekly rates. Some of them do change, others is just straight across the board. We did find one provider that their $200 a week rate doesn't change until the child is 3. So it's pretty much up to them how they want to do that, but it's specifically broke down and kind of just gives you an idea that it is very comparable to the centers, the rates as well. And then this breaks down the licensing capacity. So you'll see if an in-home doesn't take any infants, then they're able to have a little bit higher number, with the maximum that they can have being 10. If they take infants, then the number does decrease of how many they can take in total. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how that works. And then the school-aged children and their licensing that they can take with that as well. And then if an in-home is licensed with 2 providers, for example, they're not probably hiring an outside person to come in. This is probably like a husband and wife, or a mother-daughter, or something to that extent, where they're both working in the home together, but the max that they would ever be able to take is 12. One thing we have done to help with this, prior to us getting the zoning and things changed, if an in-home provider wanted to do a 2-provider option, they had to actually go between go to the city planning and zoning and then to the city commission to get a conditional use permit. So they were having to pay to be able to have them be both employed in their home, because it's a business. And so we were able to get that changed, so they no longer have to get a conditional use permit, so that saves them $175 to pay for that, and they then also don't have to take the time off of work and close their home to go sit before the planning and zoning and then go before the commissioner. So that was one thing that we have gotten changed for our county specifically. This is a grid of Salina. It is broken out between a 1.5 mile and a 1.5 mile radius, and it shows you the different child care centers across the community and where they are in relation to businesses and or your home. So if a business or individual is looking at what is close to them, they can have this map and have an idea of where a center would be. We don't have this for in-homes just because it's very hard with them there being quite a bit more, and they tend to change more frequently than our centers do. Salina Area Technical College, so they have an early child care education program. They can focus specifically on infant and toddler. They also have a preschool education focus and it can get certification. However, right now, if a student graduates from that program, they don't actually qualify to go in and be a lead teacher straight from graduation. So that is a downfall. They're taking this program and they can't even go in and start making a little bit higher. Not all of the credits transfer from the technical college, so if they wanted to go get their associates or their bachelor's, we found that only about 25% of their credits would transfer to a 2 or 4 year school, and then they don't graduate with their CDA either, which is needed to be LEAD qualified. So the last thing I would share is right now USD 305 does not really push it as a career path, but the main reason being is they aren't willing to push their students into a career that they're not going to make a living wage, which is completely understandable, which then explains why we're doing what we're doing to increase the wages. We won't be able to fill the pipeline if we don't get the wages up. So last thing I'll share with you is DCF and kind of how that works. So DCF, all of our centers take DCF. That's Department for Children and Families Child Care Subsidy. It's based off of the individual has to be working at least 20 hours a week, making at least minimum wage unless they are working on a post-secondary, and then that does reduce down to 15 hours a week to allow for study time. Only children 0 to age 12 can qualify and be in this program. They can't have more than 10,000 in countable resources, and the staff looks at everyone in the household, not just one parent or one guardian. They look at everyone in the house. Specifically also, for example, say DCF will pay $20 a week, then that family is responsible for the other $80. But that doesn't mean that the center is only charging $100. So they still have to make up for the rest of what is being charged. Not very many in-home providers take DCF because of all of the paperwork that it takes to do DCF, and then also they find that they don't always get paid when they do because the money is sometimes already gone off of their card. So, and this is just additional breakdown of how the DCF works with the income and eligibility and family size a little bit further in detail. So that is that component. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have, but I do have one last thing I would like to share with you. So we, with our ARPA dollars, put together a child care video. We worked with Feely on this, and we have been sharing this with anybody and everybody. And so I'm going to play this with you, and then happy to answer any questions after that.
I got to be the one to answer the phone call on a wait list call, and I got to speak to a dad. I said, well, okay, going through the questions. How old's your child? Da, da, da. When do you need care? Well, I don't know. That's a tough question because I've already lost my job, and I don't know when I'll get another job because I can't have a job without childcare. It broke my heart. So that's people's real lives right now.
So currently in Salina County in the area, we know through Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics information that a child care center worker on average makes a wage of $11.83 an hour, which is not a living wage, not only not a living wage, but it's actually a poverty wage for our area that you will not be able to survive on just that alone. And so to have the people who are doing some of the most important work in our community not being able to make a living wage and to be making a poverty wage, doing something that they probably love doing but aren't able to make ends meet is certainly tragic, and I think it absolutely highlights the crisis of the situation.
This is a community issue. Definitely, childcare, not having it is definitely a community issue. As our town is trying to grow and we're building new businesses, and as you know, Schwann's, Vortex, Great Plains, Kubota, as all of those are trying to expand, when people are trying to come into the community, because we don't have enough people in our own community to support those positions, there's two big obstacles in those people's way. One of those happens to be childcare.
You know, the local child care constraints that we have right now, it's having impacts on us in terms of being able to hire the right numbers of people. I think one of the challenges that we have is when you have young families and there's not child care available, they end up having to go to communities where there is child care available for them to be able to get the work and the jobs that they need. So it's really a comprehensive package where we need to be able to support childcare and also the workforce at the same time.
I think that the United Way's approach and the fund that they have created is extremely innovative, and I think it's something that helps us understand the sustainability of subsidizing wages for childcare workers. It is about the entire community sort of coming together to leave a legacy behind in terms of, the kids that we raise here and that grow up from here and again, hopefully become really successful and do well and stick around and maybe continue to make this community a better place. It becomes legacy work at that point, creating a space for generations beyond us.
Salina Area United Way Childcare Initiative Fund is going to really help impact all of us because it's going to help close that gap on wages. Those places where I can't fill the gap with opportunities to get those wages higher, and also it's not going to put the burden on the parents and the community individually. So by adding to this fund, we're going to have an opportunity to help everybody in the communities, and it's a great way for our community to say that as a united front, we can make a big difference.
I really believe that it's crucial for everyone in the community to understand the deficit that we have for childcare, and so that we can hopefully come together as a community and make a difference, find solutions that will help address these issues. Certainly the YMCA and the Chamber are doing a lot to help do that, but we need others to get involved to help solve this challenge as well. When it comes to childcare and helping to shape a community, those are two very interesting things to bring together. You have communities, parts of more rural America, that are looking for places to move because they don't have the services, they don't have the infrastructure there to help support their families, and so they're coming to someplace. If Salina ends up having some of the best childcare systems in the state, then this is going to make it easier for a family that's trying to decide where they want to move to a larger community to come to Salina. What a great thing for our community.
I think that the Early Child Care Initiative Fund really does have the capacity to transform how childcare can be done in a community and done really well. And I think that, and my hope is that it becomes something that Salina is known for, that we are seen and kind of put on the map as the community that figured out how to do childcare well and figured out how to create an environment that values childcare workers, that addresses the shortage for young families, and that helps keep, retain, and recruit young people into a community.
I am super glad that a few years ago, when the United Way was able to step up and help with the child care crisis, there was a bunch of meetings that a lot of the providers and groups came together.
And everyone was kind of scratching their heads and trying to figure out, what does this look like? How do we do this? And as we were kind of talking about where we felt the need was to subsidize wages,
We were just trying to find one person that had or group that had the time and capacity and passion to really kind of pull everything together.
United Way kind of stepped in and said, you know what, this is something we do and we do well. Why don't we create this fund and have it be a part of, the community? And it's been a game changer.
And so I'm really happy that Claire and her team have really stepped up to take on this giant challenge that can help support the rest of us in this movement of making it known in our community. So thank you.
It's definitely something that we're very grateful for, to be able to partner with them and help them with this.
I'm very thankful for what United Way has done, for their agreement to take on this child care challenge that we have and to get involved directly. And thanks to Claire and her team that's really taken this opportunity to make a difference. And look forward to others coming around them to help support this initiative as well.
Okay, any questions I can answer?
About 3 years ago, Peace and Affirmative had come and made an ask, childcare aware, to the city for additional funding.
Yep.
And then COVID took place. Did anything ever come of that?
We're working on it right now. We'll be going to city and county. They're aware that we're going to be coming. We did a study session presentation for them actually back in August. And we weren't even remotely where we are now. We had just found out about the 1.87 million, and we knew that we were getting ARPA money. We just hadn't gone before the county yet. And so now we have businesses that are on board that see this, have made the commitment, and we have others that want to come along, but they want to see the city and county step up as well, because they have some of the larger employment numbers as well. So,
Because I believe they used to fund early childhood, and then Kenwood Cove came in and the funding went out to fund that.
okay.
I'm not sure the dollars, but I think the initial thing was for funding of living wages for childcare workers. I don't know
Okay.
what the amount was or.
I'll have to look at that, because when we were having conversations, I know it was talked about how when Kenwood Cove, that they raised the sales tax, and it, they raised it to pay for it, and then once that was done, it went away. It was supposed to go away, but all they've done is redirected it somewhere else. But they have strategic planning coming up at the end of this month, and we know that their budgets are starting to be prepared and looked at, and so we are working on that. They know that I'll be coming to them before long. I've prepared them all. So we're going to them. That's the plan, is to see some support from them as well.
And who did you say you're going to?
The city and the county,
Oh,
to get some additional support in some capacity, whatever that seems to look like. But we're having the conversations with them right now of, okay, where do you as a commissioner stand? What does that look like? And things like that, so that we can come in.
So you're talking at this point of the 2025 budget. So,
Yeah. That's correct.
Are you addressing the childcare needs of shift workers?
Yes, so we've been talking about that as well. Right now, we don't have the capacity to even fill during the day, so it's hard to take that next step into later hours when we can't even support the daytime. So United Way is kind of going at this in phases. The initial phase is to get kind of the centers at a stable point to where we're not kind of all this back and forth where they don't have enough and then they do have enough, or they have rooms closed, or and trying to get some of the number of kiddos that need slots reduced, and then expand to in-homes, and then look at third shift as well.
where do you fall in the Head Start issue?
My thoughts, or what are we doing? So they
Well,
are,
do you work together at all?
we've
Because,
had conversations with them, we've talked about it. They are eligible to apply for the early child care grant, just like everybody else is. Their restrictions, they have, restrictions isn't the right word, but you have to qualify to be able to go to Head Start. Yes, and so those are some of the different things that does set Head Start aside, different from everybody else, but they're still considered a not-for-profit, or, you know, they fall under those guidelines.
because it's fed.
Yeah, exactly. The thing, when we opened the grant, we were told that, because their, wages have to be approved by the school board, that they can't just give the raises, so the school board would have to decide.
So USD 305 has some input into what happens with Head Start. I didn't realize that.
Because it's all, I think,
They're in
and
hospice.
Ken or Pat can probably talk about this far better than I can, being school board and employee, but they're part of USD 305 and all of that, so, any changes that they do to wages and staffing and things like that has to be a school board decision. But they have been, that 460,000, that number, their staff has been factored into that number. But that 460 does not include, which I did not mention this in my presentation, that 460 does not include Salina Child Care Association, because their staff are already at the 15 and 18. But the reason that they are at that is because of their partnership with the Hospital Foundation. However, to clarify that, because there has been some confusion as to that, when the hospital stepped in to fund them and help get them to their rooms being open, they were at the lowest paying scale of every center in the community. And they stepped in and have funded them to be able to get them to $11 and $14 an hour. When COVID happened, all of the centers got a huge influx of money, and they chose to raise the wages to the 15 and 18 because they still weren't getting employees in their door to get their rooms open. Now, the hospital has made some decisions that they want to see it benefit everybody, and so United Way is getting funding from the hospital, and I know that the funding for Salina Child Care is changing. The other thing is the COVID dollars in September of 2023 went away. So from 2022 to 2023, Saline County alone, for centers and in-homes, we saw an influx of $4.6 million come into our county from COVID dollars that helped them sustain and pay staff and do all of the things. So we've lost all of that, which is now putting some struggles on everybody, exactly. And so we have opened our child care grant. It actually closes this Friday for centers to apply for. We aren't going to be able to get them to their full 15 and 18 because we really only had half a year to get that amount brought in. We didn't get there. We have about half of what we needed. But so they'll be funded, and are in the grant and requirements, it states that you have to get as close to that with what funding you are awarded. Now I am very hopeful that this coming year we'll be able to get everything that we need from all of the things that we're doing, from the already committed to businesses, working to get the city and the county on board, and then working on many other businesses as well, to be able to get to that. So now, though, factoring Salina Child Care in, that 460 actually changes to more like 530 annually needed, but that's just existing. If you remember, I've also created 226 new slots, which means I need childcare workers to take care of that. So that changes my number again, that because they have not been factored in yet. So it's a huge, huge complex issue. As I keep doing things, the numbers change and all of that fun stuff.
So you, okay. I'm just I'm kind of new to this. So United Way has sort of, I seem to remember CAPS being involved in some way. I seem to remember, where's the community foundation and all this? What's the,
Are you hooked up with that at all?
What?
Are they hooked up with it at,
With the community foundation?
What? And
So, trying to figure out that we've had conversations, I presented to them, and they know what's going on. CAPS was actually the original organization that when the teach and wage dollars, they actually managed those dollars and did the block grants and all of those things. But it was having a hard line of needing to fundraise for CAPS and needing to fundraise for Child Care Center, where United Way, it's fundraising for everybody, and we don't have a specific line. We kind of can help fill that void all across. We already have the partnerships with businesses because of Workplace Campaign and all of our funded partners. So that's where United Way has kind of stepped in and is doing our part to kind of help combat that. Child care is its own separate component of United Way. So the lines don't get crossed between funded partners and child care dollars. So it's its own separate, that money is kept separate. It is different asks. So as we go to businesses, they know, okay, when we come to you for this component, you have to fund this. And if we're coming to you for childcare, it needs to be a totally separate piece from this because it's a totally separate issue. So yes, Community Foundation has been in conversations. They're not really in doing anything at this current moment, I guess, is kind of where it's at.
why are they not doing anything?
I don't know the answer to that. You will have to ask their board or their executive director of where they see.
Do they have an executive director anymore?
Jessica Martin.
Jessica Martin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
She was, I'm just kind of getting, because if I read in the paper right, there was a man? Was there a
So
man?
Michael Chambers is now under Jessica Martin. He's their VP of, I don't know his exact title, but he's right under Jessica. So he's been
At
this. No, this is at the Community Foundation.
Oh, sorry, I was.
Paul
sorry.
Forrester is the new
Oh.
executive director at CAPS. Lori Blake has stepped down and is pursuing other opportunities. But Paul Forrester, he's our retired Captain Paul Forrester. He's now the executive director at CAPS.
Captain as in,
Child Advocacy and Parenting Services. Paul Forrester is the CEO there, executive director. You asked about CAPS.
Did you say captain?
no,
He was the former captain, yes.
of what?
Chief of police.
Really?
Yes, so now he is retired and is at CAPS now and is their executive director and took over for Lori Blake.
Do you have statistics about the demographics, where the kids are in town? I like the map that you had up there showing where the child care centers are. Does that match up where kids are? How does that match up? Or complement?
It's just showing you where centers are in comparison to parts of town and where businesses are. We do right now have a survey going on in partnership with K-State Research and Extension to just really drive home everything that we're talking about. So that survey is going on. It'll be open for about 2 more weeks. It's on our Facebook page. I know the Chamber has it posted. K-State Research and Extension has it on their website and it's gone out. So if you have the time and would like to take that, I encourage you to do that. But we're hoping that through that we can have some more data that just justifies everything and what we're trying to do. There's a lot of deserts for childcare. There's really nothing in the south part of town at all. The north side, you have MLK, but really, huh?
I noticed there's only one in one area up there.
Yep, MLK. So a lot of them are kind of more centrally located. So those are other things that we're looking at. But like I said, you can add and do all of these things, but still at the end of the day, if you don't have enough people to work there, it's not going to matter. Yeah, unfortunately. Yes, Ann?
I would just say that Heartland Early Education, which is what oversees Head Start and a number of other early childhood projects, they have several classrooms that are closed because they can't get teachers. even with, and I'm not quite sure what the wages are, but I think they're not too different than everybody else's.
25 cents, I think.
Everybody is very
About
confused.
25
Yeah.
starting, they just raised those $3.
Everybody
Yeah, it is,
starts at
though.
about the same rate. The only one that doesn't is Salina Childcare, but again, they're in a situation where they're trying to figure out what they're gonna have to do, to be able to sustain and stay open. So, it is a huge issue. Unfortunately, it's not gonna go away. It's gonna be something that's always gonna be probably an issue. It's just figuring out a plan that we can help support it as a community and make it sustainable.
Do employers understand that this is part of the cost of working for their employees? And their wages should be part of what happens to address that?
So we've had those conversations with them. They're all struggling to get workers, just like everybody else. You know, as we've had conversations with Great Plains and Schwann's being kind of the top, and even the hospital, the school is not too far behind with the number of employees. They all kind of sit at about that 1,500 to 2,000 number of employees. But as they're looking to grow and expand and add more positions, they're having a hard time recruiting, and there's two big components of that, childcare and housing. And they know that, and they know that the wages are a piece of it, and, you know, we've talked about the positions that we are hiring for. So Salina is not like Kansas City or those types of places. We have a lot of manufacturing positions, and they do pay well, better than some, but it's just not enough to where they can survive. We also look at inflation and the cost of living right now. In Salina County, 12% of our households live in poverty. 27% of those households fall into what we like to call the ALICE threshold. ALICE stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. So those individuals that are living paycheck to paycheck, they're your para-educators, your child care workers, your CNA workers, your restaurant workers. They literally are working enough, or 1 to 2, maybe 3 jobs, and they're barely living paycheck to paycheck. They have no retirement, they have no savings. Something happens, no health care, something happens, and they sometimes don't come back from that because they don't have the funds to do it. So when you look at that percentage of the number of households that fall into those 2 thresholds, that's a good chunk of our community that's falling into those 2 big pieces. You know, they make too much to qualify for government assistance.
And not enough to live on.
But not enough to live on, exactly. And it's very sad, and it's heartbreaking, and so how do we help do that? Because I've met a lot of these people. We have our tax program going on right now at United Way, our volunteer income tax. We prepare about 1,000 returns for people that make $56,000 a year or less for free. And we have conversations with these families, and they are working. They are going to work every day. They have kids. They are trying to live, you know, a life that everybody wants, and they just can't. And the sad thing is we're also fighting a community where sometimes childcare isn't seen as a problem, unfortunately, or that moms should just stay home, or that it shouldn't be the community's issue, it should be the individuals. And you know, I can see that to some regard, but most families can't afford to have one parent stay home. They need whatever little bit is extra after daycare to survive. And so I would say yes, the employers know. They know it's an issue. They tell us it's an issue. And thankfully some of them have stepped up, but I hope that more step up.
As we move into an election year, with our governor being a very big advocate for early childhood, and we've got tremendous amount of support and funding that could possibly go away, that could affect maybe even what You do?
Yep, exactly. Because I haven't asked for any dollars from any business or company to help create any of these slots. You know, this has all been grant funding that we have applied for through the state. Now, we've had some match, but it hasn't actually been dollar match per se. It's been people are willing to give time or physical items like equipment or things like that as matching dollars, or this space or rent-free, those types of things. So we've been very fortunate in Saline County that we've created slots and have not had to go to businesses and ask for additional money to do that. So I think that's something that should speak volumes to our community, that I really hope that they can understand that as well, as we're making great strides. I can also tell you that we're being looked at. We are across the state. We have people I talked to that have said Salina is being looked at as to what we're doing, our plan. So that in my mind should also be something that employers need to know and understand is what we're doing, so.
Complicated. Terrible.
I wasn't kidding when I said complex.
No.
Yes. Like balancing plates. I can't let one get too wobbly.
Go while you hit the other.
Exactly, because I'll lose it over here, so it's definitely been.
No, but it's good the plates are wobbling, or not that they're wobbling, it's good the plates are there.
Yes.
I mean, at least it seems
So
to
how
me
long
that.
have you actually been in this position?
So this is the start of my 5th year at United Way. When I started, United Way, it had kind of changed directions there for a while, and now we've kind of shifted ourselves back. The year I came in, we brought in a little around 340,000. This past year, we just balanced our books, and we came over at a little over $1 million between all
So
of
you
the
are
things.
making
We are
progress.
making
You have to
progress.
look back and see it.
Yes, it's very difficult, and that $1 million is, you know, across our funded partners, because so many of our funded partners, the services that they're providing have increased because of the effect that things are having on families. It's making it harder for them to be able to fundraise and do their parts and figure out those things. So they have heavily fallen back under our fold at United Way and everything that we're doing, and partnered with us more than they have in the past. And then we've added the child care piece. So we're definitely heading back in the right direction. It's just getting to do and share this with more people so that they understand truly the impact that we're trying to make.
So in your organizational chart, so to speak.
Sure.
Is the child care initiative would be
It's just even with our funded partner.
with
Yeah.
the regular, the
Yep,
organized
it
way,
is,
that
it
kind
is,
of thing.
it
So-
is just as important as everything
Yeah.
else. Because a lot of our funded partners are child care centers.
Mhm.
Salina Child Care, YMCA, MLK, they're already a funded partner, they're already getting money. Things I can tell you, for example, because of the wages issues, they're having to redirect funded partner money that they might have used to use to help families with scholarships or things like that. They've had to move that money to wages, so they're not giving out as much scholarship money. You know, Salina Child Care had a family who the mom was diagnosed with cancer and was not able to work and still needed child care. And so thankfully they were able to move some money to help pay for that. But so that's why we feel everything is at the same level of importance, because if you take one thing away, it's still impacting. Even though child care is such a complex issue, it's just,
Wow.
yeah, that people just don't realize. And so everything that our community is doing is important, and I just want people to realize that you might not think what you can do can make a difference, but just think if we all did just a little bit, what we could accomplish, whether that's volunteering or donating or just helping spread and advocate. Because I'm only one person, you know, I have a child care person also that's advocating, but we're only 2 people. And the way
Things like this are very helpful.
Good. You know, the way people get their information is so different. It's hard to figure out, okay, how do I get information? Because the Salina Journal is where everybody used to get it, and now it's
Gone.
gone. Yeah, so there's really no good way that we've found. We're having to do 20 different things to just try to touch even a fraction of what we used to be able to.
Well, this will be running. I mean, this isn't the one shot you get with this one.
Yeah,
So if people have to run into it, at least they'll have a shot at finding out what's going on.
correct. So,
I want to thank you for coming.
thank you.
Very interesting.
I mean, I knew it was bad because I watched 4 of my grandchildren so my children could work and not have to try to figure out how to afford daycare. My daughter stayed home until her youngest went to school because it wasn't feasible for her to try to work and do daycare. You know, so I just feel privileged that I had the opportunity to help out my children and stuff. But it's something that we all need to think about. And for everybody that is watching this, once it is ready, I will place it on our league Facebook page, and you have the opportunity to share it on your Facebook page, and so more people can see it, you know, and just pass out the information. But I just really want to thank you for coming, and thank everybody for coming. Our next Lunch and Learn is going to be March the 12th at 12:15 here. We're hoping our topic is going to be about gardens, since it'll be almost spring. And also, if you notice on the chairs, I have these pamphlets put out by the League of Women Voters of Kansas. It's our legislative priorities, and so take those. If you're watching and you want one, just send me an email and I can get you one. But I just thank everybody for coming, and again, happy Valentine's Day tomorrow.
Thank you.